Rieccoci a parlare di Samuel Beckett, che avevamo cominciato ad individuare come uno dei capistipite di quella scuola, anche se non è mai stata istituzionalizzata come tale, che si chiama absurdism, il teatro dell'assurdo. Dunque, if we want to consider the historical, social, cultural background in which Beckett, Ionesco, and Harold Pinter worked and lived, we need to consider that we are in the aftermath of World War II. So we have just discovered what had been happening during the pre-war years, during the years of the totalitarian regimes such as fascismo in Italy, or Nazismo in Germany. So what we need to consider is that every kind of belief, trust in man's power had been shattered, because finally we come to the conclusion that man is capable of great things, but man, using his science, using his technology, is also able to destroy the planet, to destroy this world. And he has already proved to be dead if he wants to. So the cultural background is absolutely pessimistic. Intellectuals had lost their faith in reason, in man, in God. Because if we need to say something about man's place in the universe, the great missing person, the missing element we can't find anymore in this wasteland is God. And probably the theater of the absurd is just a reflection of the effects of such an eclipse. God is eclipsed in the 20th century. And in fact, the 20th century is often defined as the age of anxiety. Why are people anxious? Why do people suffer from anxiety in the 20th century? Because man lost any reference point. All certainties had been destroyed, shattered. And in fact, Eliot himself says that the world is just a heap of broken images. That great, meaningful picture that was 19th century Europe had been destroyed after imperialism, after the new scientific discoveries, which had shown that a lot of previously accepted certainties were false. Einstein's theory of relativity, or anthropology, or archaeology, all these new sciences, we can call them, brought to a new awareness, a new consciousness that man's place in the universe is not central anymore. Man is not a reflection of God's power. So what is man? What is this creature? Man has lost his central role in the universe, so he feels like a poor animal which has been abandoned by his master, and he is looking for a new sense. And this brings us to the idea of existentialism. After Hegel, after German philosophy, which had brought to this consciousness that reason can justify everything. Everything can be justified from a rational point of view. After all this, with philosophers such as Kierkegaard, Heidegger, Sartre, Camus, and these playwrights such as Ionesco, such as Beckett himself. We are now in this cultural atmosphere of absurdism. What is the absurd? We may look for synonyms for absurd. What can absurd mean? Meaningless, for example, or useless, or purposeless. If what you do has no end, no goal, if it's just in vain, you're doing something absurd. If what you say doesn't carry any meaning, you're not communicating anything, you're not conveying any message, what you say is absurd once again. And in fact, what do we find on stage if we go to the theater and we watch a play written by Eugene Ionesco or Samuel Beckett? What happens on stage? Absolutely nothing. Nothing ever happens. There's nothing to talk about. There's no plot. There's no more some kind of chronological and logical succession of events. This is traditional drama. In traditional plays, we find 5 acts. In each act, something happens. If you go back with your memories at the time when we spoke about Aristotle, if we think back of this kind of pyramid, Act 1 is some kind of introduction. Act 2 is called development. So the action starts to develop. We get to know who the characters are. We get to know what each character wants. And so the action starts to be built. The third act was called the climax, the point in which all the different and opposing interests of each character came into some kind of clash. So this clash between opposite interests brought the final catastrophe. So Act 4 and Act 5 were the final, somehow, epiphany, we may say epiphany, of what had been going on stage. If some character is guilty of a crime, we get to know his guilt. The spectators get to know what he was guilty of, and according to Aristotle, they learn how dangerous it is to follow one's passions. According to Aristotle, we go to the theater because we want to somehow, we want to be purified, we want to go through our passions because they may be dangerous. Friedrich Nietzsche had an opposite point of view. He said that when I go to the theater and I want to watch a tragedy, for example, a tragical play, I do not want to be purified, but I want those passions to grow, to get stronger. It's some kind of fostering my emotions. So after watching a play, I am not weaker. My will has not become weaker, but stronger. If I have a goal in my life, after watching what a tragic hero is capable of, somehow I feel more and more convinced that I have to pursue that goal. It's my goal, and I want to do anything to achieve it. So I go for it. So it's an opposite view. Aristotle and Nietzsche's points of view are different. Okay. In Beckett's plays, we do not find any meaning at all. Beckett wants to represent how absurd our existence, our lives can be. So, can we still be fixed to the traditional forms of drama? No way. We need a new form of drama, starting from the division into 5 acts. Beckett's plays are not divided into 5 acts. Beckett is not interested in following Aristotle's principles, the so-called units. Do you remember Aristotle's unit of space, of time, of action? 3 units. Okay. Samuel Beckett created plays which do not have any plot. There's no story to tell. Even the characters. Take An attendant Godot, Waiting for Godot. The 2 protagonists, Didi and Gogo, Vladimir and Estragon, they do not have a personal history. We know nothing about them. There's nothing to know because they can be anyone. They can be any one of us. And even the setting, we do not find a setting. The stage is empty. There's nothing on stage but a bare tree. Just a bare tree. Can it be some kind of symbol for what the ancient biblical tree of good and evil was? Can it be the tree from which Adam and Eve somehow wanted to taste how sweet it was to commit a crime, a mistake? The first time ever, and it was a woman, the first time ever a woman decided to disobey the rules. So an act of free will. But do Vladimir and Estragon have a free will? Do we still have any form of free will? I don't think so, because in modern time, we can't have a free will because we don't have a goal, something to pursue. What are we looking for in our lives? A more expensive smartphone, a bigger house. What do we look for? Do we still have anything to live for? No, no way. We are just like Gabriel Conroy in Joyce's short story, The Dead. We are all spiritually dead. We have nothing, nobody and nothing to live and to die for. So what's the use of a tree of good and evil? So what does Beckett do? He leaves it there There's a tree, there's actually a tree on stage, but it's bare, no leaves. It's a dead tree. As dead as our free will, as our dignity. Didi and Gogo do not have free will, and we realize this when we consider one special scene I'd like you to know. There's some moment when Didi and Gogo try to express some kind of action. When Didi says, well, shall we go? And Gogo says, yes, let's go. But the playwright, this Deus ex machina, which is somewhere above them, has decided that they do not move. So they share this idea, let's go, yes, let's go. Shall we go? Yes, let's go. But we find a stage direction saying they do not move. The problem is, what do they represent? And what does this Deus ex machina represent? Didi and Gogo are humans. They are just two tramps. We do not know if they have a job, how old they are, where they are from. There's nothing on stage. The stage could be set anywhere and at any time. So it can be even right now, here and now. We could be Didi and Gogo. What do they talk about? Nothing. One plays with his hat. The other one plays with his boots. So one has a problem with moving. Go, 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 go. The verb is to go. So don't forget, estragon, short is go, go, is the one playing with his boots. She has a problem with moving. The other one, dit en français, je dis, elle dit, il dit, is the one who has a problem with speaking. But actually, they both have problems with speaking, with communicating, because they have nothing to really tell each other. There's nothing to say. Even when they refer to a dream, a nightmare, one of them has had a nightmare, or maybe not. She remembers being kicked, being hit by someone, but the other one says, are you sure? Or was it just a dream? Was it just a nightmare? And as she cannot answer, they just change the subject. They speak about something different. They move on to a different subject. But there's no subject at all in their exchange. They just speak to fill the silence. Because the more they keep quiet, the longer they keep quiet, the deeper is their sense of emptiness. They feel their life is empty. So they need to fill this emptiness with something. You can say that the Deus ex machina, which keeps them stuck there, they say, let's go, yes, let's go. Shall we go? Yes, let's go. But they cannot move because something higher than them, could be God. We may wonder what Godot means. Godot may mean God, probably a new kind of God, a new kind of God which is cynical, which is not sympathetic with humans, a God which somehow has turned his back on humans, a God who never speaks and never shows up, because at the end of each play, a boy arrives and says, Mr. Godot has sent me here to tell you that he's coming tomorrow. So what does this mean? That the same God who has decided to stop them from moving, so the only thing they would like to do is somehow prohibited. They can't act. They can't act. They are trapped. They are trapped in some kind of what can we say? A torture. They are tortured. Existing for them is a torture. They try to commit suicide, but they can't. Their attempt to commit suicide fails. So they can't even put an end to their life, their useless life. So what kind of God is it? A God which never shows up, which makes their waiting something useless. So they wait in vain. They wait for someone who will never show up, and we can say never because we have just 2 acts. But the fact that at the very end of each act, they get this message, Mr. Godot is coming tomorrow. And at the end of the 2nd act, the same message, he's coming tomorrow. So we can somehow extend this idea of each and every day of their life. So their life is a useless act of waiting for someone who should be some kind of Messiah, a prophet, a God, the one who should bring the light of a sense for their life, which takes us back to existentialism. I don't want to just to exist. I want to be. I want to get to the very essence of my being. And my being, my human being, is more than just existing. I need some kind of sense in my life as a human. So as a human, I feel this anxiety, which Eliot had already shown in The Wasteland, this absence of meaning, this purposeless, meaningless, which we find, which takes us back to the mythical method and the use that Eliot and James Joyce made of this new literary technique, which was used to somehow depict how meaningless, now we can say absurd, our present